Hello and welcome to another edition of Ask Ben W. This video series where I get to tackle exactly one question as I walk from my parked car to my office in Denver Public Schools. Today's question goes something like this. What is the most important difference or the most important differences between the online spaces for professional learning and the face-to-face spaces? This is once again courtesy of the book Quiet, The Power of Introverts. And it's a longer book title than that, but I like that sort of shorthand. The biggest component was essentially thinking through the ways in which we have learned from massive collaboration spaces online, like Wikipedia or our very many other sort of great collaborative components. Goes into some deep thoughts around Craigslist and around the creation of the Linux operating system, which was obviously an open source project. And for me, it was very interesting to hear, because I'm listening to the book on being read to me in the car, but it was interesting to hear and read that we have taken those lessons of online collaboration spaces and like enormous communities and tried to apply them to face-to-face environments by making everything super open. We're talking about open workspaces and things like that, but even more so simply by embracing the enormous collaborative power versus the singular supported individuals, and sort of diving deeper into what allows for great face-to-face interactions, and sort of not trusting that that those two things are different, that the online collaboration and the face-to-face collaboration are different. And so that's where the question comes from, but the answer for me has a lot more to do with the ways in which I tend to use the online spaces versus the way in which I tend to use the face-to-face spaces. For online spaces, I very often will take moments and actually really pursue those deep discussions online if for very small moments, right? Like it's 5 minutes or it's 15 minutes. It is something where I realize there's an important discussion that's happening or an important idea that I need to help tackle. And I'm going to dive in. And it is on my own time, like sort of at my own pace. Whereas the types of face-to-face environments that I really tend to come into are not always on my schedule. I am sort of bending to the will of someone else who is facilitating a conversation or who is, has something new to teach. And I think that's kind of interesting for maybe as a metaphor for the ways in which we leverage online collaborative spaces is by doing it asynchronously or by doing it, synchronously, but like only if it moves you, essentially, and really making use of those face-to-face environments where we are all agreeing to take part. We are all agreeing to really hold this place sacred and be present, right? Like there is this passive collaboration or passive environment online that just allows for you to check in and check out. And the value of being face-to-face is being present, Now, you can combine those things in really interesting ways. You can create the opportunity for yourself, for others. I'm going to try not to die on one of the more busy streets in Denver. You can create those sort of blended spaces, right? Where you have the best of the checking in and out, seeing what else is going on, but you also have to hold fast to sort of the spectacular preciousness of the face-to-face environment, and that face-to-face environment doesn't always have to be about collaboration necessarily. It can be in supporting the act of reflection. It can be in supporting the act of learning deeply on your own. And I think that that's interesting to think through. Like, is it a face-to-face environment if you are on your own? Because there's no other face, so it's a face environment. And so that was something that sort of struck me pretty deeply, is like when you are engaged in deep and I think probably highly connected learning, but not necessarily collaborative learning, that there is a lot to be said for a face environment. And there's a lot to be said for really intelligently or intentionally thinking about the times where it makes sense to check in and out of an online space, or to specifically just engage in that face-to-face environment. And so there may be important times where you are making the choice. And I think it should be an individual choice to say, I am going to have a passive collaboration on Twitter throughout this session because I think that's the way I'm going to get the most out of it. Or I am specifically going to engage in this face-to-face experience because that is where the most learning is going to happen. And I'm going to make sure that my needs for passive collaboration are met elsewhere and are not happening during this face-to-face environment. And perhaps we need to also reserve the right to just have a face environment where you are present with yourself, but not necessarily with others. And so I think that there is something about the passive conversation on Twitter or other social media that doesn't allow you to be present with yourself. And sort of it's a little bit distracted. So that's a lot of thinking, and hopefully it makes a little bit of sense. But I'm interested in the ways in which you see the right balance for a face-to-face, an online collaboration, and a face environment. Yeah, that's what I'm thinking about. If you'd like to think too, leave it in the comments or ask me a question using the hashtag AskBenW. Have a great day of learning.